Hello everyone. Today in this session we are going to learn about the edaphic factor part 3. In the first part we have learned about the soil structure, soil components and soil profile. In the second part we have learned about the soil texture, soil structure and formation of soil. In the third part, in this part, present part, we are going to learn about the soil formation, types of soil, actually types of soil and soil erosion and conservation. Geological classification of soil could be of two different types. One is residual soils, the other one is transported soils. Residual soils are those which remain at the place of their formation. If the rate of rock decomposition exceeds the rate of removal of the products of decomposition, an accumulation of residual soil results. That means when the rock is being disintegrated and soil is being formed, if it is not removed as quickly as it is formed, then residual soil will be seen in that particular area. Thickness of residual soil depends upon the climate, time, and type of the source rock, that is a parent rock. These soils are found directly over the parent rock. They are not carried anywhere, they are there exactly on the top of the parent rock. Igneous rocks and sedimentary rocks are the parent material for residual soils. Now, transported soils, the other type of soil, geological type of soil, are those soils which are carried away from their place of formation to some other place, the name, hence the name, by transporting agencies. These agencies may be glaciers, water, wind, or gravity. These transporting agencies are acting either singly or in combination. Let us see about the first agency, that is glacier transported soil. These include materials transported and redeposited by glacier or by ice waters flowing from the glaciers. These glaciers bring with them huge quantities of mineral debris which mix with the ice and get carried away. It is deposited when ice melts many miles away from the original position. Now, these glacier soils are soils which are transported by glaciers, could be of the following types. First one is moraine. Moraine is glacial material deposited by ice and not by meltwaters. Drift is the material transported by glaciers and deposited from the meltwater. That means when the ice turns water, that water will be carrying this material. So it is called as drift. Now this drift has stratified arrangement. That is, it is present in the form of layers. Then till. Till are unstratified heterogeneous mixtures of clay and silt directly deposited by ice. Glaciofluvial deposits are materials transported by glaciers and deposited by meltwater with stratification. So both things are involved here, both glaciers and the meltwater. These consist of alternating thin layers of medium glaciers and darker silt clay. So these are all the types of soils: moraine, drift, till and glaciofluvial deposits which are carried by the glaciers. Transported soil. Then comes the water transported soils. The materials transported and redeposited by action of water is known as alluvium. Streams are formed in a valley due to heavy rainfall. The flowing water of stream carries with it various soil particles either in suspension or they roll them along the bottom. Due to rolling, abrasion of soil particles takes place and thus reduces the particle size. Now, the size of particles which can be transported by soil depends upon the velocity of water. If the velocity is more, it can move large size particles, and when the velocity of the water diminishes, the larger particles are deposited, the finer particles are carried further to more sluggish portion of stream when it gets deposited. That means as the water is rolling by, it carries the soil with it. If it is moving in a fast pace, the water, large particles will be carried away. If it is moving slowly, the larger particles get deposited at that particular place, only the smaller particles are carried. Soils carried by water are classified as alluvial soil, lacustrine soil, marine soil. Alluvial soil is a soil transported from its place of disintegration by flowing water and deposited along stream, so it is called as alluvial soil. These soils are very common and very large number of engineering structures are built on them. Alluvial soils often contain alternating horizontal layers of different soil types, because here you will be getting the deposits from various times of the year or maybe different years. So you get different soil types, one on top of the other. Lacustrine soils are soils transported by flowing water and deposited in lakes. That is why it is called as lacustrine soils. Most of these soils are primarily silt and clay. Their suitability for foundation ranges from poor to average. Marine soils. These are the soils transported by flowing water and deposited in the ocean. These are primarily silts and clays and very, very soft. So you can see these are the different types of alluvial soils where the soil is carried by the moving water and deposited elsewhere. Then wind transported soils or aeolian soils. Wind is another important medium for transportation of soils. Soils are transported and deposited by wind, and these are called as aeolian soils. This mode of transport generally produces very poorly graded soils because of the strong sorting power of wind. These soils are usually very loose and have fair engineering properties. Aeolian soils are of two types, loess and sand dunes. Loess is a deep deposit of silts made by wind. Such deposits are often found downwind of the deserts. These deposits have a very high porosity. That means they have a lot of air holding capacity. Loess is fairly strong when dry, but they become very weak when wet. Second type of wind transported soils are sand dunes. The low, irregular hills formed by accumulations of sand along some beaches and in some desert areas are called as sand dunes. Sand dunes are likely to be formed where the wind blows consistently from one direction only. These dunes tend to migrate downwind. The rate of migration can be slowed or halted by growing appropriate vegetation on the dune. That is why we need to plant trees in the near the boundaries of the desert, so that the desert does not get expanded. We can break the expansion of desert area by planting trees which can stop the wind which is eroding the soil or transporting the soil elsewhere. So these are the pictures of sand dunes, and you can see that when the wind is blowing in one direction, all the sand near the ocean is being carried to one particular place and deposited there. So here the sand had been transported. Then gravity deposited soils. Gravity deposited soils are loose soil or rock fragments transported downslope under the action of gravity and deposited on or near sloping ground. These soils are also known as colluvial soils. These downslope movements are of two types, slow and rapid. The slow movement is called creep, which is in the order of millimeters per year. Slowly, the material goes down the slope and here you will see that the gravity is acting on the movement of the soil particles in a very, very slow manner. Rapid downslope movement is called as a landslide. So here you can see that there is a landslide occurring in all those areas where the roots are holding onto the soil, they are there, but the other parts where the roots are not there, that means where the trees are not there, the entire portion has come down the slope in a very rapid manner. That is why it is called as a landslide. Now, the most important point of this particular session is the soil erosion and soil conservation. Now, like all geological materials, soil is subject to erosion, although under natural conditions on gentle slopes, the rate of soil formation is either equals or exceeds the rate of erosion. But human practices related to forestry and agriculture have significantly upset this balance. Mainly, soils are held in place by vegetation. When vegetation is removed, either through cutting trees or routinely harvesting crops and tilling the soil, that protection is either temporarily or permanently lost. The primary agents of erosion of unprotected soil are water and wind. Now you can see the soil can be removed from a place in the form of an entire sheet, that is called a sheet erosion. Uniform layer of soil will be taken off by the water. Then rill erosion, this is where small cuts are formed and rills can be several inches deep through this movement of water. The soil particles are removed through rill erosion. Then gully erosion, that is the accumulation of water in narrow cuts which removes the soil to considerable depth. These cuts can be sometimes several feet deep also. Then all of them, that is the rill, the gully and all of them, these two together combined will form a channel erosion, especially near the banks of the streams or rivers or drainage ways where the increased water flow will cut off the banks. So this is called as channel erosion. So this is a picture where you can see there is a small rill erosion, and wherever the grass is not holding on to the soil, that particular portion, the soil is removed. So as we have learned before, wind and water are the main agents of soil erosion, and the amount of soil they can carry away is influenced by two related factors: speed and plant cover. Speed, the faster wind or water moves, more soil it can erode. So the speed of water or wind will decide how much of soil is being eroded. Second point is, important point is plant cover. Plants protect the soil, and in their absence, wind and water can do much more damage. So if the plants are there, their roots will hold on to the soil and the erosion will be almost checked in those places. Now, erosion also occurs when farming practices are not compatible with the fact that soil can be washed away or blown away. What are the farming practices which are making the erosion occur? Overstocking and overgrazing. Number one, inappropriate farming techniques, lack of crop rotation, and planting crops down the contour instead of along it. How can we conserve soil? We can conserve soil either by biological methods or by mechanical methods. Using biological methods, that is, either go for grass hedges or agronomic practices like contour planting, cover crops, mixed cropping, zero tillage and minimum tillage, mulching and selective weeding. And in mechanical methods, we can go for stone terraces, drains, earth bunds, and preparation of terraces. Now, this is a diagrammatic representation of what we have just now understood. We can build in terrace. Terrace is nothing but a very planned manner of going for vegetation, where the water will not be able to carry away soil from this particular area to the next level in the normal force. So we have to build a terrace to create level ground and stop soil being washed away. And even on the terrace, you have to go for the plantation of trees near the edges or near the corners. So because the roots hold the terraces and trash lines together. Now in between two terraces, you will have a ditch where this particular area will hold the water. Whichever is coming down from this particular first terrace is being held in this particular ditch, so that it is not eroding the soil from this terrace to the lowermost portions. It is being held over here. Once the soil is water is held, the soil which is being carried away from this terrace is also staying here itself. It is not going further down. Then you can also go for cover crops like beans, etc., because they stop the splash erosion. That is, whenever rainfall occurs, the raindrops may hit the soil in such a force that it is eroded immediately. So here, if you plant some small plants, crops like beans, etc., they stop the splash erosion in between the trees, and not only that, they also help absorb the water. Now, near the trees, you can go for mulching. That is, you go for, excuse me, you go for carrying or having the debris which is coming down from the plants. You just retain it there itself, so that it keeps the soil moist and it adds organic matter to the soil and also stops a soil splash erosion. Then near the edges of all the terrace, you have to go for grass bunds. Grass bunds or bands are nothing but growth of linear growth of these grasses along the edges of this particular terrace, so that examples are elephant grass and rapier grass. They can keep the terrace strong. Not only will they stop the water from flowing down, they will in fact stop the soil carrying a soil which is being carried by the water, and see that the erosion does not occur or the soil does not go to the next terrace. Then on the ground also, on the terrace, you can go for grass, which is also absorbing water and into the soil, and also stops splash erosion, and that is called as the ground cover. And trash lines, that is you have to grow weeds, etc., along the contours, and the soil builds up behind this particular weeds to form a small terrace. Here also you are effectively stopping the soil erosion. So excuse me, by planning it in this way, we can stop, that is terrace farming, we can stop the soil erosion effectively. Now you have to go for planting windbreaks, then terracing, just now we have seen, then the use of contour plowing, leave unplowed grass strips between plowed lands, that is strip cropping. Then make sure that there are always plants growing on the soil and that the soil is rich in humus, because humus will usually trap the water and sees that the water is absorbed by the soil. And since plants are growing, their roots will trap or stop the soil erosion by either wind or by water. By water, they will stop by their roots, and the wind erosion, they could stop by their leaves or canopy. Now, avoid overgrazing. Allow indigenous plants to grow along the river banks, because the river banks are special ecosystems where you will find either amphibious plants or rooted and emergent plants which make the water retain the soil, which does not allow the soil to erode which does not allow the water to erode the soil from the river banks. So these plants are very, very important. They should be indigenous, which can which have the capacity to stop the erosion from the river banks. Then conserve wetlands. Then cultivate land using a crop rotation system, and minimum or no tillage, that is continuous plowing of the same land again and again, should be stopped, and encourage water infiltration and reduce water runoff. These are the ways to prevent soil erosion. Now, why should we learn about plants in controlling soil erosion? Because they play a very, very important role in controlling the soil erosion. They provide protective cover on the land and prevent soil erosion for the following reasons. Plants slow down water as it flows over the land, so runoff is stopped. And this allows much of the rain to soak into the ground. Once the soil water is soaked into the ground water table will be increasing, or it will be maintained in a proper manner. Plants root hold the soil in position and prevent it from being washed away. Then plants break the impact of raindrop before it hits the soil, thus reducing its ability to erode. Then plants in wetlands and on the banks of rivers are of particular importance as they slow down the flow of the water and their roots bind the soil, thus preventing erosion. So the part of plants in controlling soil erosion is huge. So, excuse me, we can just compare the processes like soil degradation and soil conservation. Soil can be degraded by erosion, by nutrient runoff, waterlogging, desertification, acidification, compaction, crusting, organic matter loss, salinization, nutrient depletion by leaching, and toxicant accumulation. These will reduce the soil productivity. They have a negative impact on soil productivity. So what do we do to see that these are balanced? You go for soil conservation practices like conservation tillage, crop rotation, improved drainage, residue management, water conservation, terracing, contour farming, chemical fertilizers, organic fertilizers, improved nutrient cycling, improved systems to match soil, climate, and cultivars. So these are all having a positive effect. So unless these positive effects are acting, unless the negative effects are completely controlled, or at least they are functioning in a minimal manner, soil productivity will not increase. Unless the soil productivity increase, the production from that particular soil, that is the food which is coming out, or the plant products which are coming out of that particular area will be less or minimal. Thank you.